I think for the concerns of conducting. Maybe this guy shouldn't have been packed in plastic. Here's a look at the Jada Toys Street Fighter II The Final Challengers, Blanka. Step into the arena and unleash the electrifying power of Blanka with the Ultra Street Fighter II Blanka 1/12 scale action figure by Jada Toys. This meticulously crafted collectible figure brings one of the most iconic and unpredictable characters from the Street Fighter series to life. After being stranded in the jungles of Brazil after a plane crash, a young man named Jerry was transformed into the wild, electrified fighter known as Blanka. This 1/12 scale action figure is expertly crafted to capture Blanka's primal energy and unique fighting style. Not really stepping out of the jungle, but stepping off of Facebook. Oh, I had no idea Blanka takes selfies. No, actually, I did find this on the Facebook selling group, and I bought this from Popeye the Toy Man. If you would like to check out his wares, you can certainly click the link down below in the video description. In the meantime, though, let's go ahead and take the tape measure and see how tall Blanka stands. And of course, we'll also gather around the other Street Fighter figures we've already had a look at. Just know, though, that Blanka is going to be a little bit more online, or where you're able to find him in the stores or in the wild. This guy sells generally about US dollars, about 34 of that. Most of the figures are either priced at around 24 to 29. If you're getting like a Cammy, for example, she's more closer to 25. If you're getting more of the Guiles, a little bit larger figures, they're closer to 30. Even then, though, if you look at the volume, and you'll see in a second how much bigger this guy is, for a $34 figure, again, US dollars, that's not bad at all. Jada Toys, I don't know how they're managing to pull out these figures at the pricing that they do. The tape measure is, though, going to tell us that Blanka, in the height that he is standing 7 inches. That's going to I almost knocked him over. That's going to translate to a figure that's about 17.5 or 18 centimeters tall. Yeah, when you bring in the likes of a Ryu, you see how much taller, though, that Blanka is. That doesn't change at all, of course, when we bring in his mold brother, Ken. Even then, when we bring in Guile, who has been up to this point the tallest figure, or even the shortest, Chun-Li, it's clear by far that Blanka's the biggest of the batch. Blanka BTW is also the first figure that we've looked at that hasn't come included with an effect piece display stand. Those circular clear acrylic stands that have had an adjustable neck, yeah, you don't need that at all with Blanka, because he doesn't really technically throw anything, at least from a figure standpoint. What he gets, though, instead is his electricity effects. I do think, though, that first of all, I think Jada Toys, by not just mirror flipping the exact same mold piece, I think that's pretty good. I mean, when you're looking at the two, even though, yes, they are made a softer plastic, they could have easily phoned this in and just had the exact same piece doubled up twice. But actually, if you look at the two, they are completely distinct from one another. They're almost like electrifying snowflakes. They start generally, though, quite yellow, and they get progressively clear as we get to the tips. But again, they're using pretty much just like a soft plastic. They don't really necessarily envelop or wrap around the figure's body. You can kind of see that they have a curve to them, that when you are displaying him, especially more in a crouched pose, you sort of have to have, let me just move everything out of the way, sort of have to have him just on the sides. It looks a lot better when you've got this guy, like I said, in a crouched position. He does also come included with a couple of swappable hands. These hands, by the way, if you don't think that he's ferocious enough, bestial enough, by the fact he does only have closed fists, you can certainly render that quickly by swapping him out with these monster hands instead. Don't know if he's really necessarily trimming those nails, but at least the nails have been painted well. I do like the coloring that they've chose. Now, there has been a couple of Blankas released by other figure companies that tend to go with a little bit more of a darker color. He gets approached more like the interior of an avocado. No, not the outer skin, not that darker green, but the fleshy inside of an avocado. It's sort of like that color here. If you did want to swap out the hands, though, for Blanka, it's just a case of holding onto the forearms. I have yet had any issues at all when it comes to swapping out hands or heads for that matter. Easily just pop them off. Pop the new one that you want to use in place. We'll do the exact same on actually this side as well. We'll just pop the new hand in place. Now, Blanka's ready for doing destruction. Now, again, like if you wanted to, you just get this guy in a somewhat believable pose, kind of have the arms kind of inward, and you can also then bend his knees. This guy's got shackles, by the way, which I'm glad to see that they chose to include. But get sort of the knees in a somewhat believable pose. And get this guy. Now, actually, despite having what you would imagine to be a lot of top-heavy plastic, if you get this guy kind of lunging forward, he seems to be an okay figure to stand on his own. Says the guy now that's going to have a hard time getting this guy to stand. you can kind of also assist by bringing his arms forward. If you bring his arms forward, it sort of throws the balance off, kind of balances him off a little bit better. Then you get him in a pose that looks somewhat like this. I mean, you could probably do a little bit better of a job than I'm doing right now, and just take the electricity and surround him just like that. That looks pretty cool. You do one better though. Blanka also does come include with a swappable head. So let's just sort of part the flames out of the way, pick the figure up by now, and actually you know what, we'll look at the defaulted head first before we swap things out. Even though the other one is definitely more ferocious of a Blanka, I actually still think, and it seems to be a running trend, that the defaulted head is still the best of the two. You get a grimaced face for Blanka, so I don't think that's bad at all. Crazier Sonic-style hair on the back. The hair is a pretty soft plastic. In fact, actually, if you lift this up, you can kind of see that the underside of this, it is sort of cheat in the way that they've really kind of made the bottom, or the interior, having a hard time getting that all out. The interior of the hair is technically really just hollow. So it's really only just the top that gets the sculpting, but really it's a place of his hair that you'd never look at in the first place if it wasn't just for me pointing it out to you guys. So I think the head sculpt defaulted isn't bad at all. In fact, like I said, if you compare it with this one, this definitely does have a little bit more veracity to it. I don't love it though. There's something like dislocated by the way his lower jaw looks. Like, just to put this figure down here for a second, the way that this shifts forward like this, not that I would want to start saying that avocado-skinned Brazil jungle boy looks unrealistic, but I don't know, there's just something though to be said about the fact his lower jaw like this is shifting forward. It almost looks like he's just dislocated his jaw. I think the head sculpt honestly could have been done just a little bit better. If you like this head sculpt though, it's just a case of holding onto the torso obviously and just popping the head off the ball joint. No issues again whatsoever when it comes to changing the heads. Take the new head, pop it back onto the ball joint, you'll get a nice satisfying snap, and you can have certainly Blanka displayed that way if you want. For the rest of the figure's body, I know we've spent some time looking at his face. Now, depending on, again, where you kind of pull your Street Fighter fandom from, a lot of these characters, as an example, I'm just going to bring back in Ryu, kind of pulls more from the classic Street Fighter games. The more modern or recent releases, Street Fighter figures or Street Fighter games obviously have the characters looking a little bit more realistic. I don't want to really necessarily say realistic and talk about Street Fighter. So like the approach that Jada has done with this line is kind of more of a simplistic or stylized design. Not to say that takes anything away from Blanka at all. Of course, he does have the fur there on the front of his chest that matches somewhat close to the coloring that they've used for his hair. He's got some tufts there on the sides of his forearms. He's got some tufts down below here as well. Nice little included accessory, though, is that they chose to add the shackles. I mean, Blanka, when you tend to think of the character, he usually has little shackles around his ankles. These are, by the way, loose and separate pieces. In order to actually be able to take these off, I would imagine, though, you'd have to pop off the feet altogether. And I would recommend right away, don't get anywhere near a man that probably hasn't bathed for several years. There's pegs, by the way, on the undersides of his feet. So again, you can attach this guy into the display stand if you want. The trunks generally look quite good. You got a little bit of tear down below here. There's some rippage down along the top. It's a really well sculpted figure. Again, really, when you have to look at a figure like this and realize you're paying $35. I mean, here in Canada, I'd be paying a little bit more than that. But for a $35 figure, look at everything that we've gotten. The amount of sculpting, the amount of paint that went into this guy. Not to mention, though, the posability. Blanka is an awesome looking figure. Now again, with that though, the figure does have some decent levels of posability too. I'm going to stick with this head sculpt right now. It's not going to lie. Okay, one thing I will say about the head sculpt to redeem itself, or at least redeem myself, when you're looking at it from the side, if that's the way that you're going to pose Blanka, I don't think it looks that bad. It really honestly is when you start looking at it from the front. It just, for me, something gets lost. It isn't so much, though, the eyes or the mouth or the nose. I think it's really the mouth. Something just doesn't work for me. Anyways, though, again, if you're looking at it from the side, I don't think it's nearly as bad. For the head's articulation, though, despite having long locks of hair, Blanka can so still easily move his head all the way around. The head can also look up and look down. And he also has, to assist him, a ball joint at the base of the neck. This really does come in handy, especially if you get this guy in a crouching pose, because obviously he's going to have to look at who he's fighting. You can take the head, and because he's got that arch in the neck, you can bring the head all the way up. So you can still have him in a hunched position, and he's still looking at the opponent in front of him. You're just going to, again, have to make sure. Let's bring those arms up just a little bit. Yeah, you can see he balances fine. Now, for the figure's arms, they do rotate all the way around. You can bring those arms out almost at a 90-degree angle bend. It does require a little work on your part to bring those arms up, but he does successfully pull a T pose. In addition to that, the figure does have a bicep swivel, a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands do rotate all the way around with a hinge back and forth. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. It will lose some of the illusion when you start to turn this, that the tuft of hair doesn't quite really match with the one that he's got on his tummy tum-tum. Still, he has a ball joint there. He has also a ball joint at the base of the abdomen. And really, when you start to arch this guy back, do you realize there's some more additional sculpting that initially you may not see depending on how you've got this guy posed. He's finished like from head to toe. In addition to that, he also has a bit of a waist swivel. That really kind of goes hand in hand with the ball joint he already has. Legs go forward and back, no issues there. You can split the legs out. You can see that working behind the scenes, this is a section where you wouldn't want to get too close. But he does have still a ball joint that attaches the thighs. The figure does also have a swivel. Now, the swivel conveniently is hidden underneath the rip of the pants or the shorts. So I like that they've hid it there. The figure does also have a double hinge in the knee. I've noticed, though, on my figure, it's developing a little bit of looseness. For the what little time I've actually spent just bending this guy back and forth, this lower leg especially, I've noticed, is getting a little on the looser side. He has an ankle pivot up and down. Blanka does also have an ankle rocker back and forth. Did I already mention? I know I did mention. Figure does also have pegals on the bottoms of his feet. Best of the Street Fighter figures? I would say yes. I would certainly say yes. I mean, it's hard, really. Up to this point, we've kind of really looked at human characters. The moment you start to incorporate and bring in, like, kind of the main monster figures like Blanka, it's hard not to look at a figure like this and think, maybe this is the best figure we've gotten so far. Let's just bring in some of the other examples here. Maybe this is, yes, the best example we've gotten of a Street Fighter figure and Jada toys. He's also the oversized or mega-sized figure, and with that, a price that kind of goes with that, but pretty still easy on your budget kind of price. You're not, I think, not going to have to pay a whole lot more to get Blanka. It works out to be about like $5 to $10 difference, even less than $10 between what Blanka's going to be going for versus all the other Street Fighter figures. Sagat is also going to be an oversized figure that's going to be a little bit bigger. It's about going to be the size of Blanka. We're also going to be looking at him in an upcoming review as well. But like, I really like the look of Blanka. The only thing I will say, though, is I don't love the head sculpt that they gave him. I think it's one of those cases, though, depending on which side that you're looking at, maybe this side is his best side. Looking him straight on, there does seem like there's something off about his mouth. Don't like the sculpting of the teeth. I do think, though, at the end, I'm just going to end up beelining it back to his uglier, which is the uglier head sculpt. I think I'm going to, though, still go back to the defaulted head, because I think in a case of Blanka, it's the best that we get of the both. A trend that Jada Toys has been doing a lot with their Street Fighter figures is releasing the molds again in alternate costume colors. And while I don't really think that Blanka changes his undergarments all that much, not an idea I really want to be putting in your guys' heads, but I think that's something they could certainly do as a reuse of this mold, is release an electricity Blanka, taking essentially his body that we already have now and just darkening the color, maybe even making kind of a black where he's got a little bit of his skeletal showing through his body. They didn't necessarily have to do it with a translucent plastic, something they could easily just pull off with paint. I'm sure not something like that would be released to stores. Likely, though, it would probably be a convention exclusive or something only found online. But I would love to see an electricity Blanka making use of the same mold. One of the best Street Fighter figures we've gotten so far from Jada Toys. It's pretty high on that list, I gotta say, at least top 3. Granted, though, says the guy that hasn't really looked at a whole lot of Street Fighter figures, I can understand, though, why a Street Fighter fan would want to pick up Blanka now. Now, this guy's been around for bits. I've now finally had the chance to pick this guy up. I grabbed this again from Popeye the Toy Man on the Facebook selling group. And for the price of what I bought him for, not a bad price at all. Actually, at the same time that I picked up Blanka, I also picked up Sagat. So we're going to be looking at him in an upcoming review. But what do you guys think of Blanka? Let me know down below in the comments section. One of the best of the Street Fighter figures we've gotten. If there has been a better, let me know down below. If you guys have also enjoyed this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course, come back. There's always going to be more videos coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.